In the seizure of this tanker, what happens to the oil on this ship?
Well, we keep it, I guess.
Where does it go? What port does it go to?
Well, you have to follow the tanker. You know, you're a good newsman. Just follow the tanker.
Do you know where it was going? Was it going
Follow
to
it.
China?
Get a helicopter and follow the tanker.
Is it true it's going to
But we're
Cuba?
I assume we're gonna keep the oil.
Mr. President, on Fed Chair, Kevin House.
This is my video update on this Thursday afternoon, December the 11th, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with some breaking news, which is that Siversk is now under the control of the Russian army. Looks like it's official. The Russian military has captured Siversk. This is according to Peskov. Siversk has come under the full control of the Russian army. This was discussed at a meeting with Putin. So if it is indeed coming from Peskov, then you can take it to the bank that Siversk has been captured by the Russian military. And I imagine that the Russian Ministry of Defense will be issuing a statement any day now, announcing the capture of the very important, very fortified region of Siversk. Bad news for the collective West, for NATO, for Europe, and for the Zelensky regime. But maybe it's not such bad news, actually. Maybe it's not such bad news because Siversk was insignificant. It took Putin a very long time, and he suffered huge losses trying to capture the insignificant area of Siversk. So we'll get back to Ukraine later on in this video, and we'll now talk about the main news story for today, which is the U.S. seizing an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. And what this has to do with narcotics and fentanyl and Maduro being the leader of a non-existent drug cartel. What does this oil tanker have to do with all of that? We'll wait. We will wait to see what the script writers come up with, how they piece this all together. But for now, this is without a doubt an act of piracy by the Trump administration, and we're seeing lots of piracy these days when it comes to tankers, whether it's seizing tankers or whether it's attacking tankers. This is becoming very common and very alarming. Let me find the quote from Trump. He was asked by reporters about the seizing of this tanker, and of course Trump, in his very Trump marketing way, he made it out as if this was the greatest, biggest, largest tanker seizure in all of history. He said, as you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela. Large tanker, very large, largest one ever seized, actually. The largest one ever seized. I like it a lot. It's the biggest tanker ever seized in all of history. The greatest, biggest, most beautiful, largest tanker seizure piracy operation in all of history. So Pam Bondi, she released a video of the seizure of the tanker, the U.S. military boarding the tanker and seizing it. According to Bondi, the tanker had been sanctioned by the U.S. for multiple years due to its involvement in an illicit oil shipping network supporting foreign terrorist organizations, including Venezuela and Iran. So there you go. There you go. That's the connection, right? The tanker is connected to, well, it's been sanctioned for many years. It's connected to Venezuela. It's connected to Iran. It's illicit oil. It's illicit oil, and no one likes illicit oil. That oil will get used to fund terrorist organizations. It's going to go to Iran. and then the oil is going to fund Hezbollah, and then it's going to fund Hamas. And we know from Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham that that Hezbollah and Hamas is operating in Venezuela, and they're connected to Maduro, and Maduro is in charge of this non-existent drug cartel, and there you have the connection. So there you have it. I've done the script writer's work for them. So there you have it. That's how all of this is going to be explained. So Venezuela is saying that this is an act of piracy. Venezuela also issued a statement saying that they are going to take this this seizure of the tanker to international organizations and institutions. They're going to make their case of the seizure of the tanker to various international organizations. International organizations that are controlled by the United States. So what are you going to do? You're going to take this to the UN? The UN is controlled by the United States, pretty much. But anyway, that is what Venezuela is saying. Also, in their statement, Venezuela said that the masks are off. They said that this shows this is not about narcotics or drugs. What this is about is our resources. The fact that the United States is seizing an oil tanker shows that this is all about Venezuela's resources. So they said that as well. So what you have going on is a blockade. You have a blockade of Venezuela. So as the world is anticipating some sort of U.S. operation in Venezuela, against Venezuela, it looks like the Trump administration has decided to move forward with a blockade of Venezuela. So they're annihilating speedboats, submarines, boats that they say are transporting drugs to the United States. They're destroying those boats and the people on those boats. And now they're seizing oil tankers. And my understanding of the tanker is that the route of the tanker, it was going to head to Cuba. And then from Cuba, it was going to move probably towards, I imagine, towards the Middle East, right? We don't really have the details as to where the tanker was heading. Maybe those details will be published by the time I upload this video. But I think it has been confirmed that the tanker was going to make its way to Cuba. So you have a blockade of Venezuela now, and Trump can say that all the military assets are off the coast of Venezuela in order to blockade Venezuela, to stop their trade of illicit oil, and to stop the funding of narcotics. So he can come out with that narrative and explain, at least for the next couple of weeks or couple of months, he can explain why all the U.S. military assets are in the region without having to actually move ahead with the military operation, if that's what he's looking to do. So he has that card to play now, if you want to call it that. Rubio is happy because they go after Cuba. They hit the Cuban economy, or they hit the Cuban access to Venezuelan oil. So they stop the Venezuelan oil to Cuba. That squeezes Cuba. A blockade of Venezuela squeezes Venezuela. Trump gets to explain all of the U.S. military assets in the region. And he also gets the videos that Pam Bondi posts, which show the U.S. military seizing the tankers. And in Trump's mind, this shows U.S. peace through strength. And he could come out with statements saying that this was the greatest tanker seizure in all of history, and this was the largest tanker in all of history. And you know, Trump, he likes that stuff, so he gets the videos and he can post them on Truth Social, and he can do his marketing there. So that's what you have going on, a blockade. And a blockade is, I mean, you're not at war with Venezuela, are you? So a blockade of Venezuela is also an act of war. So that's the situation in Venezuela. One boat did get through. It looks like one boat got through. If the Wall Street Journal's reporting is correct, I believe the Wall Street Journal was reporting on this story. The boat that smuggled Maria Corina Corazon, Nobel Peace Prize winner Machado. I believe the Wall Street Journal said that she was smuggled out of Venezuela, and she made her way to Oslo. Yeah, she was going to be at the Nobel Peace Prize event, but she couldn't make it in time, so her daughter gave the speech, and her daughter definitely gave everyone Iraq 1.0 incubator vibes, right? Remember the daughter of the ambassador, I believe it was, during Papa Bush. I think it was Papa Bush. And she gave that speech or that testimony and talked about the incubators. And you got those vibes from Machado's daughter's speech, accepting the Nobel Peace Prize on behalf of her mother, who was supposed to make her way out of Venezuela to Norway in order to attend the event, but it looks like they couldn't get her out in time. The special forces or the three-letter agencies or whatever. The story goes like this. My understanding of the narrative is that she has been in Venezuela, right? She's been doing podcasts every week, and she's been speaking to Fox News and to all of the mainstream media outlets throughout the entire collective West. She's been doing interview after interview, but she's been doing them from Venezuela. She's been hiding in Venezuela with a podcast studio, and Maduro had no idea where she was, as she's broadcasting every other day. I don't know. Maybe. Okay. Sure. Why not? And Maduro was closing in, and so they got her out, right? She wore a wig, and she passed 5, 6, 10 checkpoints, and they put her on a boat, and the boat was not targeted by the U.S. blockade. So the one boat didn't get through, and it was Machado's boat. And then she ended up in Norway, right? And there's video of her in Norway. Oslo, aquí estoy. Aquí estoy, Oslo. María, Corazón, Corina, Machado. Yo estoy aquí, Oslo. That's the story. And I don't think I'm making it up. One second. Here we go. Max Blumenthal. According to the Wall Street Journal, okay, so I'm right. According to the Wall Street Journal, citing a person and people, this is a story of how Maria Corina Machado supposedly escaped Venezuela. I'm not going to read you the entire post on X. It's a long post from Max, but let me read you the first part. Wearing a wig and a disguise, Maria Corina Machado began her escape from Venezuela on Monday afternoon. Over the course of 10 nerve-wracking hours, Machado and 2 people helping her escape hit 10 military checkpoints, avoiding capture each time before she reached the coast by midnight, said a person close to the operation. She rested for a few hours, the person said, before the next leg of her journey, a perilous trip across the open Caribbean Sea to Curaçao. She and her 2 companions set out on a typical wooden fishing skiff at 5 a.m., the person said, with strong winds and choppy seas slowing them down. That's the story. So Maduro's super incompetent. if she's been in Venezuela all this time doing all of her broadcasts and he wasn't able to locate her, if you buy into the narrative that Maduro is hunting her down. Or Maduro didn't care. He knew where she was, and he didn't really care and allowed her to do her thing, which would mean that he's not the brutal dictator that they tell us he is. Or she wasn't in Venezuela and that's that. I don't know. She was somewhere in Langley and she took a plane to Oslo. I don't know.
And I want to speak to the Norwegian people, to European people, to the Venezuelan people. I would say to all citizens of the world in this hour, and assure you that I am very hopeful. Venezuela will be free, and we will turn a country into a beacon of hope, an opportunity of democracy.
So we had a tanker attack in the Black Sea. Ukraine hit a tanker in the Black Sea, and this is, I believe, the fourth Russian Shadow Fleet. I forgot to say Russian Shadow Fleet tanker. This is the fourth Russian Shadow Fleet tanker in the past 2 weeks that Ukraine drones have hit. And Putin has given his warning. He gave his warning about 3-4 days ago. Putin said if we continue to have these Ukraine drones hitting these tankers, then we're either going to blockade the Black Sea, or we're going to hit Ukraine ports. For example, Odessa. That was Putin's warning. He said that we're not going to put up with this, even though these are not Russian tankers. These are tankers that have been categorized as Russian Shadow Fleet. The Russian Shadow Fleet. It's like a ghost of Kiev, Russian Shadow Fleet. Where is that Russian Shadow Fleet? A tanker that's not insured by London. That's your Russian Shadow Fleet. So that's the name of the game now, right? The new rules. The new rules are that any tanker that is not insured by London is now fair game. And for the time being, it's Ukraine that is taking out these tankers, or at least that's what they're telling us. Right? Ukraine is taking out these tankers. It's pissing off Turkey. It's pissing off China. Everyone's getting very, very upset and very angry with the fact that tankers are being targeted by Ukraine, by Ukrainian drones. There was a tanker, the third tanker that was hit was off the coast of Africa. And Russian sources claim that, or are speculating, some Russian sources are speculating that it was the French that were behind this. It was Macron, little Napoleon. Macron, because for the Ukraine to hit a tanker off the coast of West Africa is impossible. It makes no sense, and it's impossible. And so who had or has a connection, or used to have a presence, or maintains a presence in Africa or in West Africa? France and Macron. And so the thinking amongst some sources is that it was actually France that hit the third tanker. I can't confirm that. I'm just telling you what some analysts and what some sources on the Russian side of things are saying, are speculating. So tankers, Russian Shadow Fleet tankers. If you're not insured by London, then you're fair game for an attack. New rules. The international rules-based order. This is an amendment in the rule book. We'll see what China does. We'll see what Turkey does. And we'll see what Putin does. He gave his warning. We'll see what happens next. And we don't even know if these tankers are carrying Russian oil. They could be carrying Saudi oil. Just because they're going to make a stop at a Russian port, it doesn't mean that they're carrying Russian oil. So the tanker wars. Looks like we're heading into a world of tanker wars and piracy. Van der Pirate. Trump the Pirate. I like it. I like it a lot. If you like this video, hit that like button. And when you hit that like button, say, I like it a lot. Also share this video and subscribe to this channel. Let's get back to the news. And let's talk about Lavrov, again. Lavrov, he was speaking yesterday, he was speaking to Russian lawmakers. Today, I believe his speech was to ambassadors, to a group of ambassadors or an ambassador council. And Lavrov, he talked a lot about the Russia-US negotiations and the conflict in Ukraine. And let me just give you a rundown of what Lavrov said. I'm going to summarize what he said, and it was huge. It was huge what Lavrov said. He said that Ukraine has suffered upwards of 1 million casualties, a little more than 1 million casualties. I don't believe he gave an exact number. I'm not even quite sure if by casualties, or if he said casualties or KIA. I believe he said casualties, but he said it's over 1 million. So he revealed that. He also said that through the talks in Istanbul with Ukraine, they've had prisoner exchanges as well as fallen soldiers. They've exchanged foreign soldiers through the dialogue that they have had over the past few months. And the exchanges have been over the past year, I believe. And the exchange numbers are 11,000. Russia has handed over 11,000 Ukraine fallen soldiers, and Ukraine has handed over 201, I believe is the exact number, of Russian fallen soldiers that Ukraine has handed over. So that gives you a number of a ratio number of the fallen soldiers, 11,000 to 201. Those are the numbers that Lavrov gave out. He also said that any EU peacekeepers, because the EU goes on and on about peacekeepers and the coalition of the willing and all of this stuff, Lavrov made it clear for the 100th time that any EU peacekeepers showing up in Ukraine would be considered legitimate targets. So that's what Lavrov said. Do not dare send peacekeepers to Ukraine, Macron, Merz, Stammer, because we will consider them legitimate targets in this conflict. Lavrov also said that Trump is trying to work towards peace, and he also mentioned that Putin, the directive from Putin, is to try and work with Trump, to talk with Trump, and to try and work with Trump to get to a peaceful settlement. So he mentioned that as well. He said that Boris, he didn't mention Boris by name, but he said that there was a deal, and the deal was sabotaged by an unkempt individual, right? A very sloppy individual, a dirty, sloppy individual showed up in Kiev and pretty much sabotaged the peace that was agreed back in 2022. And then Lavrov also said that the SMO, it started after after the Russians realized that Kiev was given carte blanche to attack Donbass. And he's right. He is right. I remember right before the SMO started, you had two very big events that happened that led to Russia taking the decision to begin the special military operation. The first event was the Munich Security Conference, and Zelensky saying that he's going to get nuclear weapons, and all of the Collective West leaders from Annalena Baerbock to Harris and Pirate Schultz. They were all talking up Ukraine entering NATO and Ukraine getting nukes. And that was the first event that spooked Russia. And then you had the increase in shelling and bombing of Donbass, as well as a buildup of Ukraine military close to Donbass. And if you go to the charts back then, the tracking from the OSCE of the shelling, 5 days prior to the SMO, or a week prior to the SMO, there was a huge uptick in attacks into the Donbass, and there were many reports saying that there is a buildup in the Donbass of the Ukraine military. So that is what Lavrov said, and it does gel with what we saw way back in early 2022 as to what was going on in Donbass at the time. So that's Lavrov speaking to ambassadors. I think today we are going to get a call between Trump and Macron. I believe Macron and Stammer, as well as the Green Goblin. They are going to hop on a phone call with Trump, and they're going to try and get Trump to Europe. My understanding is that they're going to try to convince Trump to make a trip to Europe and to meet with all of them, meet with Zelensky in person, and meet with the big three in person. And they also have a new plan to give to Trump as well, a plan that was completed actually by Zelensky and the Europeans. And they want to present that to the U.S. president as well. All of this is going to happen, I believe, this afternoon. So I'll probably talk about that tomorrow. But be prepared for Trump if he does hop on a call with Little Napoleon, with 008 and the Green Goblin. Expect Pirate Trump to maybe, possibly put something out on Truth Social where he explains how disappointed he is with Putin, because you got to remember that the last person Trump speaks with usually dictates his mood and his foreign policy rhetoric. So be prepared over the next 24 hours for Trump to post something on Truth Social talking about how he's disappointed in Putin and how he believes that Ukraine is going to win the conflict, right? So that could very well happen after the phone call with Macron, Stammer, and Zelensky. Sirsky, the general, the commander of the Ukraine military, he is actually addressing Trump in a letter, in a statement, a message. I'm not sure in what format he put this out, but he is telling Trump, Sirsky, that Sirsky, the failed commander of Ukraine, he is telling Trump that Ukraine is actually holding back Russia. He is telling Trump not to believe in the Russian military propaganda. He claims that Ukraine is actually capturing parts of Pokrovsk, that Ukraine has actually stopped Russia, that what you see on the front lines is a stalemate, that Russia's advances over the past month or so have been inches, very, very small advances, a very small amount, insignificantly small amount of territory has been captured by Russia. And basically, Sirsky is telling Trump that everything you've been hearing as far as what's going on the front line is Russian propaganda. And actually, Ukraine is holding Russia back and is even capturing territory that Russia claims they control, such as Pokrovsk. So that is what Sirsky is saying. So, I mean, Siversk has been captured by Russia. Sirsky is saying it's all lies. Sirsky. Anyway, all right. Who do you believe? Who do you believe? The Russian military, Putin, the Kremlin, every single mapping channel, every single analyst, even the Institute for the Study of War, Victoria Nuland's ISW, even they are having to admit to Russia's gains. Do you believe all of them, or do you believe Sirsky? Sirsky, of course, that's who you believe. And Kellogg will back him up. Kellogg will back up Sirsky's claims, no doubt about it. So that is an update there. And since we're talking about his plan, Podolyak, we have an article from the Washington Post from David Ignatius. And this article is very much, if I had to describe this article, I would say that this reporting of a peace plan that is now coming together, I would say that this is the CIA's way to get to a resolution in Ukraine. I would say that this is the CIA telling Trump, this is the peace plan that you need to agree to with the Europeans and Ukraine, and this is the plan that you need to present to Russia. And it's a doozy. It is delusional. It's about as delusional as you can get. David Ignatius, The Washington Post, the Jeff Bezos WAPO, the outlines of a sustainable Ukraine peace deal inch into view. Trump's tilt towards Russia isn't helping, but there's still a path to a reasonable endgame. And Ignatius reports that according to his sources in Washington and the Trump administration, with the three-letter agencies, that there is a peace deal, a peace plan that is being put together. We're almost to the end of this plan, but it is coming together. And this is going to be the plan that is going to be presented to Russia eventually. But all the negotiation is happening between the collective West and Zelensky, the United States, the Europeans, Ukraine. That's where all the real big negotiation is happening. And they're almost ready with this plan, according to the Washington Post, which will be the plan that is finalized and is presented to Russia. And if you look at this plan, it is the capitulation papers of the United States. The United States is presenting the capitulation papers to Russia. Russia, these are the papers that you need to sign to surrender to us, surrender to the United States. That's what this plan is really all about. But I don't know if this is really what for example, what Witkoff and Kushner are talking about with Putin. I doubt that they presented this thing to Putin, Witkoff and Kushner, when they were in Moscow. Because if they presented this, or even a framework of what I'm about to summarize, if they presented this to Putin when they were in Moscow last week, then it wouldn't have been a 5-hour meeting. It would have been a 5-minute meeting. Russia would have laughed, and they would have said, "That's funny. You guys flew all the way out here to show us this. Good one." But that would have been it. So I'm looking at this as a type of psyop, as a type of way for the CIA, because you're talking about the Washington Post and Ignatius. This is their way of signaling to Trump that this is the plan that you need to put together. This is how we want you to present a plan to Russia. This is what we want with regards to a settlement in the conflict in Ukraine, of which the Russians would never agree to such a thing. But anyway, let me summarize what Ignatius is outlining in this reporting. The plan is basically going to provide Article 5 guarantees to Ukraine, NATO-like Article 5 guarantees to Ukraine, the U.S. Providing security guarantees to Ukraine, the reporting says, and the guarantees would actually even be approved by Congress. Congress would even ratify this document and these guarantees to Ukraine. We're talking about a security guarantee treaty, right? Article 5-like security guarantees provided by other countries in the collective West, but mainly by the United States, voted on and ratified by Congress. According to the Washington Post, Russia would have no veto rights over any decisions made by Ukraine or by the guarantors or anything like that. So Russia would have no veto rights at all when it comes to Project Ukraine. The Ukraine military would have limits, but the limit would not be 600,000, which was in the Trump 28-point peace plan. It's going to be bumped up to 800,000. So that would be the size of the Ukraine military. And Ignatius actually reports that according to his sources, Ukraine is not even happy with 800,000. But one thing that the United States, according to the Washington Post sources, one thing the United States is telling the Zelensky regime is that they can supplement the 800,000 with other forces. perhaps National Guard, perhaps other military forces. I think we all know what they mean by that, right? So that's how they're going to try to ease Ukraine's concerns about an 800,000 troop soldier cap. 800,000, okay, from 600,000 to 800,000. The DMZ, there's going to be a DMZ from Zaporozhye all the way up. Wherever the contact line is at this moment, it's going to freeze. And whatever territory in Donbass that Russia does not control, that will be part of a DMZ with no weapons, nothing, no heavy artillery, nothing. And actually the DMZ is not only going to encompass Donbass, the 20% that Russia does not control, it will even go further westwards. So it'll be a Korea, I talked about this yesterday, a Korean-style DMZ, like modeled after the solution in Korea, right? The armistice in Korea. Basically, you're telling Russia, basically what you're presenting to Russia is that there's a freeze, and Russia, you're saying that you want the Ukraine military out of Donbass. And what we're telling you is that the Ukraine military is going to leave the 20% of Donbass, but you're not going to be controlling that. Ukraine is not going to be controlling that. That's going to be a demilitarized zone. So that's also in there. It gets better. It gets better. The ZNPP, the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, is going to go to the United States. The U.S. is going to manage the ZNPP, so Russia's going to hand over the ZNPP, the management of the ZNPP, to Ukraine. And at first, the reporting says at first Ukraine did not like this. They want the ZNPP under their control. But Ignatius reported that the Zelensky regime is starting to like this idea, because for them, the U.S. managing the ZNPP and controlling the ZNPP would mean that the U.S. military presence, U.S. experts and officials at the ZNPP could act as a tripwire if Russia decided to do something. So they started to warm up to a U.S. control of the ZNPP, of which Russia controls right now, which is in Zaporozhye, which according to the Russian constitution, Zaporozhye is part of the Russian Federation, but forget all of that. You have a freeze, you have a DMZ, and Russia is going to be expected to give the ZNPP over to the United States. Here, U.S., you take the ZNPP. So we have that in there as well. The U.S. also gains control of the frozen assets. The Europeans are not going to like that. So the U.S. gets the frozen assets. Some of the frozen assets go to reconstruction. Some of the frozen assets, the profits of the frozen assets, part of it goes to the United States. So the U.S. profits off of the frozen assets, and the reconstruction from the frozen assets, that goes to the U.S. And also the reporting says that the United States is speaking with BlackRock. They're speaking with BlackRock to see if they're going to also contribute to the reconstruction of Ukraine if the United States, if Russia agrees to this plan. It actually says that they're going to actually approach BlackRock and ask BlackRock about. I think they had a reconstruction plan of 400 billion. Like 2-3 years ago, they were talking about the 400 billion reconstruction fund, and they want to talk to BlackRock about that fund again. BlackRock abandoned that idea, but now they want to restart the reconstruction fund idea with BlackRock. So that's in there. And finally, it talks about 2027 fast track of Ukraine into the European Union. And Ignatius reports that even though Hungary and Orban do not want Ukraine into the European Union, the article says that Trump is going to convince Hungary to allow Ukraine into the European Union by 2027. There you have it. That's the plan, according to the Washington Post, that the Trump White House is finalizing with Ukraine and the Europeans. I believe that's the plan that the three-letter agencies want Trump to finalize and present to Russia. But that's the reporting. There's also There's also an article, I believe, from Defense. I think the publication is called Defense Net, I believe is this publication. They're reporting that they've seen a hidden security strategy document, the National Security, Defense One, my mistake, Defense One. Yeah. They've seen a document that that was not published, which is an addition to the national security strategy that was published a couple of days ago, and in this more complete security strategy document, it actually talks about a core 5 being created, and you don't get much details about it, but the Trump administration is presenting to the other powers of the world an alternative to the G7, which will be called the Core 5. And the Core 5 will consist of the United States, China, Russia, India, and Japan. And this is going to be the next G7. So the G7 is going to be downgraded. Europe is marginalized. G7 is downgraded significantly. And what you're going to have to manage the world, the new world order, the new multipolar world, what you're going to have to manage the new multipolar world is going to be this Core 5. The White House denies this, by the way. They deny that there's another national security document. They deny that national security strategy document. They deny that there's this Core 5 proposal, but this is what this publication is saying they saw. So I thought I would mention that as well. Thomas Massie, he is putting together some sort of legislation to abolish NATO, to put that up for a vote to abolish NATO. Never going to happen, but good on Massie for doing that. And finally, how are we doing on time as it's getting dark? Finally, we'll do an update on the Russian frozen assets, because over the next couple of days, it looks like Ursula and her crew is going to pull the trigger on $225 billion to Ukraine. It's either going to come in the form of a forced loan. EU member states will be forced to loan money. Each EU member state is going to have to give some money to Project Ukraine. They're going to be forced to do it. Or it's going to come from the Russian frozen assets. Either way, Ursula is going to get her $225 billion to the Green Goblin. And what they're going to do over the next couple of days is they're going to try and pressure Belgium one more time to agree to give over the $140 billion in the Russian frozen assets. And what they're going to tell Belgium is that if you do not greenlight the Euroclear $140 billion to the Zelensky regime, then we are going to shun you. We are going to treat you like Hungary. That's right. This is what they're telling Belgium. Even the Prime Minister of Belgium, De Wever, he actually said yesterday that this is all a bad idea. He said it's a bad idea. It's not legal. He said this is an awful idea. Let's not do this. Now he's on record saying all of this, right? So when Russia takes Europe to court, they've got the Prime Minister of Belgium saying how all of this is a terrible idea, right? But anyway, he's on record now. De Wever is saying, don't do this. This is not legal. This is not right. Ursula doesn't care. Callas doesn't care. Costa doesn't care. The globalists in Brussels, they do not care. They want $225 billion given to the Zelensky regime. They got a $40 billion loan to pay to the G7. So they're going to move forward. And if they can't get to the Russian frozen assets, then they're going to force EU member states to give money to Ukraine. That includes Hungary. That includes Slovakia. They're going to force them to hand over money to the Green Goblin. But they're going to take one more crack at Belgium, and they're going to tell Belgium, give over the $140 billion from Euroclear, or else we are going to treat you like Hungary. And when they say that, they mean that Belgium is not going to be part of the cool kids club and they're also not going to get access to the various EU funds that Ursula controls and that Ursula likes to create. The European Union is run by high schoolers. It's like the movie Mean Girls or something. That's the European Union. It's run by a clique of very mean high schoolers. So that's the update there. And one other quick update, which is that what they're going to do with the assets, with the frozen assets, is that they are going to invoke emergency powers for the commission, and the commission is going to take the frozen assets and they're going to make it permanent. So what they're going to do is they're going to prevent Hungary from vetoing sanctions rollovers. So every 6 months, you have to take a vote, and it has to be a unanimous vote to roll over the sanctions against Russia. And in those sanctions is included the Russian frozen assets. So what Ursula is going to do is she's going to get emergency powers, and she's going to take the frozen assets and take them out of the sanctions rollover and make the freezing of those assets permanent. And you're going to need a unanimous vote in Europe to unfreeze the Russian frozen assets. So what you're looking at is a permanent confiscation of the Russian frozen assets. It's basically what you're looking at, because you're going to need a unanimous vote to unfreeze the assets, which means that any country, every time you have a vote, any country in Europe, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, one country can just say, no, I don't want to unfreeze the Russian frozen assets, and they're going to remain frozen forever. So basically, what you're going to see next week is a confiscation of the Russian frozen assets. Once Ursula gets those emergency powers, and once she takes the Russian frozen assets out of the sanctions rollover votes, she permanently freezes them with her emergency powers, and you need a unanimous vote to unfreeze them, a permanent confiscation. There you have it. Anyway, all right, so let's get into some clown world. I hope I explained that well. Anyway, clown world. Let's begin with the 5th country to boycott Eurovision 2026. It is Iceland. Iceland is now boycotting Eurovision because of Israel's participation. So Eurovision is crumbling, and Eurovision deserves to crumble. But anyway, Iceland is joining Netherlands, Ireland, Spain, and who else? I'm missing. Netherlands, Ireland, Spain, Iceland, and there's one more country which I forgot. Yeah, I forgot. Anyway, the foreign minister of Germany, Mr. Wonderful, he is requiring all embassies all German embassies to have his portrait hanging on the wall. He wants his portrait, the foreign minister. That's right. That is what he is requiring. I believe you have the president's portrait in the embassies, the German embassies. He wants his portrait. And he's actually given requirements as to how his image should look. He doesn't want cheap photocopies or anything like that. He wants a nice portrait. That's what he's looking for. The German Foreign Ministry, everybody. That's what he's concerned with. You have the Trump Gold Card. That was announced. The Trump Gold Card launches, offering expedited immigration pathway with $1 million fee. So for $1 million, you get a fast track towards a residency, not citizenship, a residency for $1 million. I believe for $2 million, If you're a company, you get a fast track for workers, so they can get their permanent residency and work in the United States. So I think it's 1 million if you're an individual. I believe it's 2 million, or maybe it's 5 million. If you're no, 5 million gets you a platinum card. It's not a joke. A platinum Trump card, and it's called the Trump Gold Card. That's what it's being called, the Trump Gold Card, and they're going to launch soon the Trump Platinum Card, which for 5 million, I think fast tracks you towards citizenship, towards a pathway towards citizenship. You still have to go through all the checks and the interviews and all of that stuff, but for $1 million, you could be fast tracked towards residency in the United States, and it is the Trump Gold Card. They have a website and everything, right? So that's been launched. And finally, we have this photo. I don't know if this is AI. This is probably AI, and I probably should not be including this in the clown world, but it's kind of funny. It's probably a fake photo. It's probably AI. But there's an image of Zelensky's pants in this photo with Rutte and Costa and Van der Tatters, and it looks like he's wearing some type of elastic sweatpants or something like that. But I'm sure this is AI. I'm sure it's a fake photo, or it's Photoshop or AI, but it's funny nonetheless. Anyway, that is the video, everybody. The Durant.locals.com. We're on X, we're on Rumble, and Telegram, and go to the Durant shop, pick up some merch. I will see everyone tomorrow. Take care.